Hey you guys, let's make this delicious raisin scones for your family, for your small business, or just for yourself. So I started by laying out all the ingredients for everything I needed to make the scones. So this is a pro tip, you guys. Always lay them out so that you don't forget things, so that you don't put things twice in the same recipe. Just put everything on the countertop so that you can see everything that you're doing. So I went ahead and weighed out my flour. Remember to sieve all the dry ingredients, so I sieved my flour beforehand just to decrease the mess when I was now recording. This is just to incorporate some air into your flour. It helps your scones become fluffy so that they're not clumped together. So you should definitely sieve your flour. It's inevitable, you need to. So initially I had said 100 grams of flour. I just wanted to make 4 scones or so, but then I was like, you know what, maybe I need a bit more. So behind the camera I did add 50 more grams of flour to make it 150 grams of flour. So I added my sugar, that is just 1 tablespoon. You can use less, especially if you're going to use jam on your scones, so that everything is not just too sweet. So I also added some baking powder, about 2 teaspoons of baking powder. I was using some form of plain flour, that's why I added the baking powder and the baking soda. But if you're using soft raisin flour, there will be no need to add that. I usually prefer to use cake flour, actually the plain cake flour, because it's fluffier. For some reason it produces the most beautiful fluffy scones. Even when I do my plain buns, even when I bake my cinnamon rolls, I always use cake flour. It's finer, it's been super refined, so it's very white. Then I just add my raisin agent. So I also add baking soda. As you can see, I added just 1/4 teaspoon, close to a pinch of it. This is just to make my soft raisin flour from the plain cake flour. Then you just mix everything together. Don't forget the salt as well. Salt to taste, you need a pinch, it makes a difference. Just mix everything up together. Then I added some butter, that is about 2 tablespoons of butter. I left it out a bit, but do not use room temperatures butter. Everything needs to be cold, but I just let it out a bit so that I'm able to mix it into my dough. You can use butter straight from the fridge, it's very preferable. Just grate it into your mixture. And the technique, guys, is you need to use your fingertips. Do not use your whole hand, do not use any kitchen equipment, use your fingertips. Remember, you pinch, then you lift and release, pinch, lift and release. This is also to incorporate some air into your scones. If you use any spoon, if you use anything else that is not your hands, it will just remove all the air bubbles. It will make your scones very clumpy, because the scones are supposed to raise, you know, when they crack in the middle. That's called sconing. It's because of all the air that we've incorporated into them. So that's the technique, you guys, and you need to do it very quickly so that your body temperature doesn't warm up the scones. So you mix until they look like breadcrumbs, exactly just like that. So I then added some egg to my sour milk. So yes, sour milk will produce the most delicious scones. If you do not have some sour milk, you can use full cream milk, but to it, add some lemon or some vinegar to make it buttermilk. If you have the buttermilk, that's great, you can use that as well, but I find that the sour milk, works the best. So I just added my egg in there and just beat it around to combine. Then another pro tip, when adding the raisins, add them into the dry ingredients first, and then you mix them around. This is just to coat the raisins in flour so that they do not sink to the bottom of your mixture. Use this method even when you're making muffins or cakes. If you do not coat your raisins, they will sink to the bottom of your dough because they are quite heavy. So then I started to add the egg and sour milk mixture into my dry ingredient, and look how I mix. Do not over mix. This is one recipe that doesn't require overhandling. If you overhandle it, it will turn out horribly. So just mix enough to incorporate the egg sour milk mixture into the dough. Remember to add a bit at a time, and if you have extra, that's okay. You don't need to put everything in there. So I just wiped out my counter top, then I added some flour onto it and transferred my dough onto the counter. Yes, it looks like it's not thoroughly mixed. That's okay when you're making scones. So just add a bit more flour, and then you press on the dough using your fingertips. Then you press and fold. You press down, you lift it and fold, exactly how you would do it if you were making a puff pastry. But this time around, you don't need any rolling pin, you don't need anything, just your fingertips are enough. So you just keep folding 3 or 4 times. Remember not to overhandle the dough. After a few folds, again using your fingertips, just flatten it out a bit. Don't make it too flat. I would say about 2 to 2.5 centimeters. That's all you need. Remember, it will give your scones some height, and the more height they have, the fluffier they are inside, the softer they are inside. So let's grease our baking tray. I just used the remainder of the butter that I had. Then I just spread it around. I will write down the full recipe for those scones in the description down below. I usually just make them by head, so I'll try and put everything down in the description for you guys. I'll add some flour to the baking tray, and then you just shake it around until the entire base is coated with that flour. I think you can also use parchment paper, but this is the way they used to do it back in the day. I believe it's still the best way to do it. So just cut your scone cutter or whatever round thing you had. I had cookie cutters, they were a bit too small, so I just used that little lunch box that I had. So I just started to cut, press it into the dough to make round squares. If you don't have anything round, you can just cut your scones literally using a bread knife. Like, just dust some flour onto your bread knife and just cut it into whatever shapes you like. Some like to cut it into squares. You can cut it into little triangles. Then gently pick them up and put them on the baking tray, just like that. Again, careful not to compress them. You need that air. You need those air bubbles in the middle of your scones. So be careful not to compress them. Then for the remainder, I just started to do the whole press and fold method. There's always that last scone that you don't know what to do with. So this is my last scone. That's my prodigal son. I'm trying to show him as much love as I can, trying not to overhandle him. So I just folded him a bit, and then I used the same round container to try and shape him around into a decent round shape, so that he doesn't feel left out, so that it looks at least a bit closer to the rest of the others. So that's how it's supposed to look like. So let's make some glaze so that your scones come out a bit shiny. So just add a bit of milk into a glass, and then you add 1 full egg. You can use just the egg white, it's okay, but one. So if you're making a lot of scones, if you're using more than 1 egg, if you're using 2-3 eggs, so when you're about to pour the eggs into your sour milk or into your milk mixture, just leave a bit for the glaze so that we're not wasting eggs, because in this economy we need not to waste eggs. So just brush a bit onto the top, that will give it that shiny glaze. Some prefer to then sprinkle a bit of sugar on top, because this will just caramelize and form a crispy like texture on top, but the egg and the milk wash is okay. So just keep brushing and you're all done. Preheat your oven to about 180 degrees Celsius, and in goes your scones for about 15 to 20 minutes or so. And depending on the oven that you have, depending on the weather conditions, it does not necessarily need to be exactly 15 to 20 minutes. You just adjust it according to whatever it is that you're working with. They are supposed to crack like that. They're supposed to raise. That's called the sconing effect. Look at them straight out of the oven. Guys, when I tell you these things are extremely delicious. When I made this, I was like, oh, I'm going to put a bit in my fridge and then eat 1.5 or 2 for breakfast tomorrow and have some for the next day. Girl. Well, let's just say that was just wishful thinking. They are really delicious. Look at how they look, you guys. So yeah, that is all from me. Subscribe for more, like and share with your friends, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.